Eskom is now holding a media briefing on the current system challenges. The power utility implemented stage 2 rolling blackouts from 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Eskom says this is due to multiple generating unit failures over the past 24 hours. Let's take you live to that briefing.
Before 9:30 this morning, the information provided to me by the system operator is that our total unplanned availability is 15,614 megawatts, so significant number of megawatts that is on unplanned availability. Our planned unavailability is 5,500, so in total our unavailability as of this morning was just above 21,000 megawatts, to be precise, 21,119. Now, over the weekend, this is now the weekend just past, we usually during the lower demand period, we take the opportunity to address some defects that we do have, which we then also did on 4 of our running generators. So we took them offline to do some repairs on the defects that we had. So we always knew that this was likely then for us to require and to utilize some open cycle gas turbines even over the weekend and then also over the evening peaks. Now on Saturday, a Camden unit as well as a Majuba unit unfortunately were taken offline due to boiler tube leaks. So in general then overall on Saturday we required 5 open cycle gas turbines to support the system and keep the pump storage dam levels in check. And that is important to make sure that we don't deplete the upper dams. However, on Sunday morning, we had another 4 generators that tripped, hampering our ability to replenish, these dam levels. Now, Kusile 4, and I must state that Kusile 4 is a non-commercial unit, was also taken off for most of the day for basically capability and commissioning tests. Now, Kusile 4 has been supporting, and we're quite grateful for that, been supporting the system with about 600 megawatts during the weekdays and performing then of the necessary commissioning tests happen overnight as well as on weekends. Now, as a result on Sunday, due to the reduced capacity we had available, we then needed to run 17 open cycle gas turbines on a Sunday in order to ensure that we keep the dam levels from deteriorating any further. Now, having done that on Sunday, by Monday morning, we had the dam levels completely replenished. And we really anticipated a return of 2,500 megawatts of generation capacity on Monday. So of the 2,500, we have successfully returned 2,000 megawatts. However, by 2 o'clock yesterday, an additional 7 generating units totaling about 3,200 megawatts had tripped, and we were relying then again on 16 open cycle gas turbines, as well as we had then to utilize the pump storage generators to support the system. Now, yesterday afternoon, at that point, it was then really clear that overnight load shedding was necessary to reduce specifically the open cycle gas turbine generation usage of diesel, as well as to conserve and to make sure that we do not use gas, to replenish our pump storage dam levels. However, just before 4 o'clock yesterday, we had another unit that tripped, Medupi unit 3 tripped, and the load losses increased then by a further 500 megawatts, resulting in complete insufficient capacity then to meet the evening peak. So a total loss at that stage, this is 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, of 4,500 megawatts. It is hard to believe, but it is true. We therefore had to implement stage 2 load shedding at very short notice yesterday afternoon at 5 o'clock, and it's still ongoing. So we managed to supply the peak by running all 20 open cycle gas turbines, all 6 emergency generator transformers, as well including stage 2 load shedding. So we found ourselves, as you can imagine, with 4,500 megawatts of loss in one day in a very difficult situation. Now, what has happened since yesterday? Since yesterday evening peak, we had returned 4 generators, but taken off another 2, further 2 generators, Letabo 4 and Hendrina 2, Letabo 4 because of the boiler tube leak. So we had a net effect of 800 megawatts in available capacity. So what do we expect today? We expect today another 3 units to return. So it's Kusile 2, it's Tutuka 1 and Mijuba 4. So these are all big units, so we do expect them to return today. So the outlook for the week is that an additional 4 units, Medupi 3, the one that we've lost yesterday late afternoon, Matumba 5, Matla 5 and Kendon 7, they are all expected to return to service by the weekend. But as we all know, due to the unreliability and unpredictability of the generators, and to prevent the need for any higher stage of load shedding, we unfortunately have to inform the public that we will continue with stage 2 load shedding up until 5 o'clock on Saturday morning, the 12th of March. We again do apologize. We really do apologize for the very difficult situation we are placing the people of South Africa and the negative impact that we fully understand that we have on the economy of the country. So we really apologize for that. I would then like now to ask Philip de Cachet, he's our Group Executive for Generation, to take some time and also explain in a little bit more detail where we find ourselves and perhaps the outlook going forward. So, Philip, thank you so much. Thanks, Ikonati.
Thanks, Jan. Good morning, everyone. I think, Jan, you've covered a lot of the issues, but starting really during the weekend, we've lost a number of units, 2 units at Camden. One of those units has returned, and then 1 unit at Majuba, boiler tube leak. That unit, we're hoping it will return later today. It's also delayed because on returning, it picked up another issue. And then on Sunday, Kusile Unit 1 was taken off because of a boiler tube leak. And then 3 other units were taken off, but those have returned, and that was Hendrina Unit 5, Majuba 1 and Grootvlei 3. And then on Monday, as Jan indicated, we lost capacity of about 4,500 megawatts. Some of those have returned. Others will be returning during the course of today and tomorrow. Jan indicated Tutuka. We picked up a delay on Tutuka, and Majuba will also be returning maybe later this evening. Again, because of an unrelated issue that was then picked up. And then early this morning, we lost Letabo Unit 4 after we brought back Letabo 1, and that was due to a boiler tube leak. And it just then to explain some of the risks, some of the issues that we are facing, some of the issues that are leading to these type of high unreliability and this type of poor performance. One, it's because of the age of our plants. We are doing maintenance, and in many cases, some of these units have had their fair share of maintenance. However, we are not that at this stage. We not really succeeded in predicting and in working on all the components that need to be worked on. So we are catching up on some of the maintenance. We've had some success in that. But some of these failures are coming from areas that have not been worked on. And we obviously need to look back and say, why were those, was that scope not included? Part of it, it's learning as the plant is aging. And so these are some of the things that we are having to look at. And then also we are still dealing with a backlog in maintenance. I think during the state of the system briefing, I gave details of where some of that backlog is. that backlog is still there. It's going to take quite some time to work through, because some of these issues, they require the unit to be off for 3 months or even longer. We require to plan for that, and also we need spares, to buy spares upfront for those. So it's going to take quite some time to catch up on some of the backlog that we have. The other issue is our constrained system. So our system is constrained, and as a result, we run with units that have got a risk. We know about the risk, but we're looking for a time when we can fit that unit without impacting their ability to supply electricity. So that balancing act, it sometimes lands us in trouble, because what then happens is exactly what has happened today, in fact yesterday, where some of those risks then realize at the same time, and they hit you when you can least afford it. And although you knew about them, but you had not worked on them. So those are some of the things, and unfortunately, we still have deferred some outages even now because of late funding that hit us at the beginning of the financial year. So some outages have been deferred, and that is another issue that we have to contend with. We've spoken about skills again, so some of the issues that we're facing in terms of maintenance is also related to skills. We have taken action in terms of addressing the skills shortage, and maybe later we can talk about some of the initiatives that we've got on the goal. And unfortunately, we still have more failures on some of the new build stations, both Medupi and Kusile. Some failures that one would not expect at this stage of the plant. At the age of the plant, and we are doing studies now to find out exactly why are these components, why are these areas are failing more than what we should be expecting for a new plant. So there we still not quite where we should be. So Kusile, for instance, at the moment we are not running any of the commercial units. There are 3 of them. 1 unit is on a boiler tube leak, 1 unit is on an outage, and then the 3rd unit is a unit that we are hoping to bring back later today. But again, these component failures are really hitting us, and we are looking at that. So that is where we are. Those are some of the reasons why we are where we should be. It's really having an impact on the performance of Eskom. It's having an impact on our ability to supply electricity to the country. Thanks, Jan. I think I'll stop there.
Thank you, Philip. So, Sigunati, it's back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Thanks, Jan. Colleagues, I do encourage you to ask all your questions during this briefing, because my colleagues will not necessarily be available for interviews, as they have to go into the plant to deal with the situation. So please write down all your questions. I shall start reading those that I have already. The first one comes from Miriam Issa of EE Business Intelligence. There seem to be a very high number of units tripping simultaneously, an unusually high number. What is the reason for this? Are you struggling to do plant maintenance, and does negligence, skills shortage, or possible sabotage play any role in this? Before you answer that, Philip, let's deal with Terence Creamer's question as well. Does the rise in diesel costs increase the load shedding risk for financial 2022 and 2023? Does Eskom have any strategy to mitigate the sharp rise in diesel prices? What is the projected cost of OCGT production in rand per kilowatt hour at diesel? I'm trying to find the rest of your message, Terence. Okay, let's deal with the first question, please, Jan and Philip. Mariam's question.
So maybe I can take that one. I think I've outlined some of the reasons for the high unreliability, backlog in maintenance, issue of skills, and the risks that we are constantly running with. I think those are some of the issues that we result in us finding ourselves where we are. In terms of sabotage, no, we have not identified any sabotage at this stage. And in terms of whether there is negligence or not, so for each trip and for each incident, we go back and we look at, what could we have done better? What could we have addressed differently? And in this case, I think, yes, there will always be room for improvement. But I think it's only in one case where we have said this issue should have been predicted, we should have managed better, and therefore we need to go back and hold some of the people accountable. But in most of these incidents, these are plant failures. Yes, one can say maintenance should have been done and it should have been done better, and I would agree. But in terms of immediate negligence, no, we have not identified in the majority of these cases. Thanks.
Thanks, Philip. I would like to perhaps just add a little bit, Miriam. Every morning at 4 o'clock, we receive what is called a daily 4 o'clock outlook. So I've just opened now this morning 4 o'clocks. Now, we then list all the units at risk, and we also then state what is the reason for the risk, and we classify it as a high, medium, and a low risk. Now, just this morning, and it builds on what Philip has said, we have 17 units, 17 units out of the 80 that we have in total, and some of them are out on planned maintenance, that is running with some kind of a risk. So it is a total of 8,700 megawatts that is at risk. Now, if we then break it down to high, low, and medium, we have, as we speak, about just under 2,000 megawatts of high-risk units running at high risk that we can lose at any time. So that explains in a way for us the unreliability and unpredictability of the system, and because we haven't had the opportunity yet to do the maintenance and then also to, admittedly, to do it properly. So we're still finding ourselves in a very difficult situation and a very tight situation. And, leading up to yesterday, we had a good run. And then just all of a sudden, things happened yesterday, 4,500 megawatts in one day. And what I can say also is yesterday at 5:15, we had a detailed debriefing per unit, going through the reasons why did we have the trip. And as Philip has said, I can say only one unit out of all that trip yesterday, all that we had to take down, were the issues that we believe that we could have done better. And we will now assess if any consequence management is required, and that will be done. So I just wanted to highlight that we are really running with a system that is at high risk currently where we are, and that contributes to where we find ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you again, Philip and Jan. Terence, I really have struggled reading your question. I think you must have copied it in from somewhere. It's making it very difficult. So if you have any other, please type it in onto the. So let's go back to your question. Does the rise in diesel costs increase the load shedding risk for financial 2023? Does Eskom have any strategy to mitigate the sharp rise in diesel prices? What is the projected cost of OCGT production in rand per kilowatt hour at diesel prices of around 20 rand per litre? And what is the cost of production sensitivity to changes in the diesel price and the rand-dollar exchange rate? How much revenue has NERSA approved for the current 2021-2022 financial year and the 2022-2023 financial year for OCGT costs? What is the actual cost for financial 21-2022 and Eskom's projected cost for financial 2022 and 23? Terence, immediately I must tell you that the Chief Financial Officer is addressing the International Women's Day event that Eskom is holding amongst its employees. So he is not in this particular meeting. I will ask both Jan and Philip to do what they can in answering your questions, and we will then go and find the finance department to respond to the rest on an email to yourself. I hope that is okay. Caleb is here. Thank you. Caleb, thank you. Please do take the question. Switch on your video. Thank you.
Can I proceed? Apologies. Thank you, Sekonati. Thanks, Terence. So I was addressing, I've just excused myself to join the media conference. Terence, just on average, historically, NERSA has awarded about a 1% load factor for diesel costs, which generally equated to about a 1 billion rand allowance in the past. And that's what we've got for this financial year, FY22. Obviously, as we've indicated, based on the usage this financial year, we would are projecting to spend in the region of around, I think, just under 6 billion rand for diesel for the Eskom plants. But you also need to add the IPP costs for Avon and Dodisa. That's in the region of another 3 billion rand that was projected. Coming back to what did NERSA allow for FY23, we still await the detailed reasons for decisions, but we have heard in the media statement that NERSA, the regulatory member, Mr. Gumede, if I recall, say something in the region of about a 3% load factor. That would give you, we expect around a 3 billion allowance. And then just lastly, to your last point, what are we anticipating? I think firstly, it's based on the system and the load factor, but obviously with the war in the Ukraine and Russia, that we've all seen that oil and gas prices are escalating. That would still need to be factored in on our side. But as a bottom line, we only have a certain amount that we can afford from a liquidity perspective. So this will put pressure. And what are we doing to mitigate this on the finance side? We are looking at options to hedge our diesel and fuel oil prices going forward. I guess the timing couldn't be worse, but we've already started those discussions. So unfortunately, I can't give you exact numbers at this point in time. We are still addressing those implications, but as Eskom, we definitely cannot absorb. Well, if the price, I've heard on the radio coming in this morning, if the price of oil has to double, I think it's going to impact on in terms of the energy that we can produce from diesel going forward. That's just a summary from my side. Thanks, Sekonati, and thanks, Terence.
Thank you, Caleb. The next set comes from Chris Yelland of EE Publishers. Please, can you advise the financial and supply chain impact on Eskom caused by the Ukrainian war and the general commodity cycle on coal supply cost, 2, diesel supply cost, and 3, nuclear fuel supply cost. Jan, can you handle this? I know Ridwan is holding a meeting with staff in Cape Town.
Good, thanks, Sekonati. So Chris is giving me the easy questions. Chris, we are currently evaluating the impact on what is happening in the Eastern Europe, and Russia, Ukraine and Russia. We are cognizant of the fact that prices are escalating quite rapidly and drastically. We had a discussion last night on the, just the cost, the rand per ton on coal. So we are quantifying and we are looking at actively on exactly what the most likely impact will be. So to quantify it at this point in time, we don't have it. So we're in the process doing that, and I trust that we will have it available soon. But we are really concerned on what the impact of the war up there will have on our operations down here in South Africa. Thanks.
Thank you, Jan. The Chief Nuclear Officer, Ridwan Bakadin, is also here. Ridwan, can you add to that question? Do we have any direct suppliers coming out of Russia or Ukraine for our Koeberg power station?
Good morning, Sekanati. We have no direct suppliers from Russia or the Ukraine. However, some of our supply chain it's likely we have sub-suppliers coming from Russia. So we are evaluating currently if there is anything there that may be impacted going forward. Up to now, we've not seen any risk though. We're not seen any impact.
Thank you, Ridwan. The next set comes from Janine Erasmus of Business Day. For how long have all the Kusile commercial units been offline? Has it been since the previous round of load shedding? Let's take that with Chris's next set of questions, please. Please, can you advise all the issues that caused the steam generator replacement project on Koeberg Unit 2 to be suspended? I have heard that the issues go beyond simply the lack of readiness of the containment building to house the radioactive old steam generators. What are the other issues? Ridwan, please can you address this? Chris would have missed our previous meeting on Friday, our briefing specifically on Koeberg. Can you address this, please, Ridwan?
Yeah, thank you, Sekanati, and good morning all. So yes, we did discuss on Friday at the media briefing that one of the big factors was that there were some facilities and preparatory work before the outage starts that were not quite at the level expected at the start of the outage. The intent was to, however, work around that to not impact the schedule. However, it does complicate the negotiations and the work being done by the contractor. What we have seen though, and what drove this move was in the first month or month and a half of the outage, the preparatory work that is needed before one actually starts removing the steam generators. So setting up your on-site infrastructure, the tooling, that there have been some significant delays with that. And if one extrapolates that to the end of the outage, it would cause a significant slip on the outage. So we've asked for a revised schedule from both the contractor and our team, the project team that we have, and that's come in now to say that you can expect at least 1 month delay on the outage, potentially much more due to that. And we really were concerned about that, and to the point that it may even impact on the next outage. So this decision was not taken lightly, but those were just some of the issues, Chris.
Thank you, Ridwan. Philip Tugashe, please answer the question on Koeberg. For how long have all the commercial units been offline? Has it been since the previous round of load shedding?
All right. So this is Kusile, right? Not Koeberg. And the answer is
correct.
The answer is no. So these units were running. In fact, Kusile 1 came down on Sunday because of a boiler tube leak. So it was running until then. And then Kusile 2 tripped yesterday. And that's a unit that will be returning now. So no, it's not since the last bout of load shedding. They had returned and they were running, and they tripped one on Sunday. and then another one we had to shut down yesterday. Thanks.
Philip, thank you. Please do put on your video, and Dinine has a follow-up. Please provide some detail about what caused Medupi Unit 4 to trip. Are Medupi's other commercial units working at the moment? Dinine, it was Unit 3 that tripped.
That was Unit 3, that's correct.
Unit 4 is the one that is out, that had an explosion, and will be out up until around August 2023. Sorry, 24. Please help me there, Philip. What caused Medupi Unit 3 to trip? Are all the other units working at Medupi except that Unit 4?
Yeah, thanks, Sekonata. I hope you can see me on my side. My video is on. So this was a valve that malfunctioned, and because of let's just say the valve failed. So this is the work that we need to do, and this unit is unexpected to come back in about 3 or 4 days. Medupi has had a good run. It's running well. I think we've sorted out a number of the failures, but some of these failures still hit us at Medupi. So Medupi currently, we've got Unit 3 and Unit 4 down. The other 4 units are running currently at Medupi. Thanks.
Thank you, Philip. The next question comes from Miles. I'm really not going to try pronounce your surname, from my broadband. Mr. Dugasha mentioned that Eskom was aware of at-risk generation units in the country. Please, could you provide details on which units these are and what their generation capacity is? Philip?
Yeah, so I think Jan has also indicated these units. So this is a report we get every day at 4 a.m. So is currently 8,700 megawatts, which is at risk, and it varies. So Arnott, they've got 2 units, Unit 4 and Unit 5. One we know that is running with a boiler tube leak, and then another one has got an issue, a defect on a pump. So it is running at risk. Duva, Unit 4, we've got a leak on a FRF. It's fire-resistant fluid that is used on the center line on the turbine. So that is at Duva, it's 575 megawatts. So we can provide this list. It goes down. There's units at Majuba, there's units at Kendall that are running with risk. And again, it's plant issues that we know of, but we're looking for waiting for an opportunity so that we can address those. So this is a list that we can actually publish. So I really would not just like to go through all of it, but we can make it available immediately after this.
Thank you, Philip. I wish you can just add there that a lot of the time there will be some fault or another on a unit, but which can still run at a certain capacity, not necessarily full capacity. Am I correct?
Yes, Sekonati, you are correct. So some of the units would increase what we call partial load losses. So they take away some of the capacity, but it's still preferable to run those units because we are benefiting from the megawatts that are there. So again, we will continue to run those units and while we're looking for an opportunity to attend to those issues causing those partial load losses. Thanks.
Those were Miles's questions from my broadband. Terence Creamer wants this question answered again. Please, Caleb, come back in. Does the high and rising price of diesel increase the risk of load shedding? I guess the question there, Caleb, is there a point where you will say, I'm not paying for any more diesel at these prices?
Yeah, thanks, Sekonati. Terence, at the end of the day, Eskom, from a cash flow perspective, can only afford so much on diesel, and we'll get to a point where we just don't have funds to pay for additional diesel beyond a certain point. But I think most importantly, we should look at the performance of the generation fleet, and that is the area we need to address to mitigate against future load shedding. But bottom line is we don't have a blank checkbook to continuously spend on diesel based on what we've received from the regulator, based on the government equity that we have. And at the end of the day, we got commitments to make to avoid a situation where Eskom cannot meet its contractual obligations, be it in terms of debt commitments, be it in terms of other creditor commitments. So that's what we will have to balance from a financial perspective. Thanks.
Thank you, Caleb. Jan, you wish to add some comment on this?
Yeah, I'd just like, thank you, to add what Caleb has said. Up until now, Terence, we haven't load shed to save any diesel. So I want to make that very clear. This is not contradicting what the CFO said at all, but I'd just like to make it very clear. Up until now, we haven't implemented any load shedding to save any diesel costs. So it is about to all the time monitor your levels, your emergency levels. So that is water as well as diesel. But because we talk about diesel, it's to really monitor your diesel tank levels, and then to also have a good understanding of your logistics when you are utilizing your emergencies, diesel specifically, extensively. So, and when we then get to a stage that we have to implement load shedding, it is then about capacity. Number one, do we have sufficient capacity using the emergencies over and above what our system can provide? And then also to look at the levels of the emergency, that we don't deplete it to a stage that we have serious problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. The next question again comes from Chris Yelland, and it is for yourself, Ridwan and Jan Oberholzer. Please, can you confirm that both Eskom and the National Nuclear Regulator was aware that the containment building for the radioactive old steam generators was not complete and ready when the NNR approved the Eskom safety case and gave the green light for Eskom to proceed with the steam generator replacement on Unit 2? Ridwan?
Yeah, thank you, Sekonati. I can confirm we got the approval. There were some conditions in the approval. So Eskom and the NNR were well aware of the condition and the readiness of that building, the storage building for the original steam generators when they get removed. And one of the conditions was, and it's a hold point, and they have a number of hold points in the approval. One of the hold points was to before proceeding beyond a certain point on the steam generator replacement project, to confirm the building was ready. So we've actually progressed that building quite significantly. Even the COO has been involved in engaging with some of the suppliers on that, and we pulled that schedule back quite well. So today it's actually become less of an issue. We need to keep working on it because we now need to finish. That will be done in the next week or so with that building, and it will be required when the job proceeds, when we remove the steam generators in the next outage, which starts in a few months' time. And we also need to do the same and build another building for the second unit. So yes, it was well understood at the time when we received the approval from the NNR, and the conditions were quite clear around what needed to be done in terms of the steam generator replacement and the readiness of that building. Thank you, Sekonati.
Thanks, Ridwan. We have from Narisa Subramani of the Citizen newspaper. the next set of questions. Please clarify if the repairs being done on the old stations are maintenance or plant life extension. I would suppose you are talking about all the power stations other than the nuclear power station, Narisa, and the answer would be that's maintenance. What contingencies are in place if the NNR doesn't grant the plant extension license for Quebec in time? Confirm if the containment facility for Quebec is ready for the plant maintenance next year. That's Narisa. Do you want to come back, please, Ridwan, and give a direct answer, perhaps to contingencies with regards to the plant extension license and when that containment building will be ready?
Yeah, certainly, Sikanati. So the work being done during the outage, for Koeberg anyway, is specifically, it's both maintenance and life extension work. So in addition to the steam generator replacement, which we've now spoken about extensively, there are a number of other projects continuing in the outage which relates to plant life extension. So we're replacing the actor pressure vessel head. That work is still proceeding during the outage, but there's also a lot of maintenance, which is normal maintenance, and some of that maintenance is also linked to plant life extension. So that work proceeds, and we, as I've mentioned, we will be submitting our safety reports to the nuclear regulator by the middle of this year. The contingencies, we've raised the risk within Eskom. Should there be any delays on the life extension for Koeberg, and that is being managed in accordance with our risk management program within Eskom to ensure that there are contingencies in place, so additional capacity at that time should there be any delays, which we see as being very small risk. And then just the facility for the steam generators, when they come out of the plant, it's nearly ready for the first set of steam generators. So and the second building will start construction as soon as the first one's done in the next month or so. So it's taken, the actual construction has taken about 4 months. So we envisage that the first building will be needed by early next year, and the second building by towards the end of 2023. So we're well on track for that now. Thank you, Sikana.
Thank you, Ridwan. I hope that clarifies your questions, Narisa. Philip Tugashe, please can you answer the question about the repairs being done on the old power stations? Are these maintenance or are these life extension?
Thanks, Sikonati. We are not doing any life extensions on our plants. So the plants that all of our plants actually, we're just doing maintenance. But I wanted to come in here because I think we need to clarify and address something which may not be obvious. So we have a plan in Eskom that says when each station will be shut down. So we maintain our plants in accordance with that plan. So if a station, for instance, is going to be shut down in 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, then one would not necessarily buy expensive components to be able to refurbish that station or that unit. That certainly is the case on some of the stations like Grootvlei, like Camden, and clearly it's the case on some of the stations now that are approaching their end of life as well, that will be shut down, like Tutuka and Kring. So we're facing with those issues. Now, if you refurbish rather than do a total replacement, your maintenance strategy has changed and your reliability will definitely be impacted. So if one has to chase higher reliability, then you change everything. That's what you would do. You change everything, you bring in something new. It's going to cost quite a lot more, but then you will get the reliability there, much higher reliability. So as a plant age, as they approach their end of life, one would not expect that you're going to do a total changeover and install new components. So those are some of the dynamics that we are sitting with. It has to be a balance between the money that you have and the money that you can spend on a plant that is about to be shut down. The second thing that I want to make as well, I think we have been saying as Eskom, and I need to reinforce this, we need additional capacity in the country. That capacity is desperately needed. Every time there is load shedding, it's we look at Eskom, and it should be because we are the bulk supplier of electricity. But we have been saying now consistently for a number of years, or at least months, that we need between 4,000 and 6,000 megawatts of additional capacity in the country. Without that, it will be impossible to say that we're going to have a reliable system, because we need, as we indicated, we're running with 8,700 megawatts of risk on our system. The right thing to do would be to shut down those units, do the maintenance, because they are going to trip and they're going to embarrass us at a time that we do not expect. So the right thing to do would be to shut them down and attend to the maintenance so that we can have more reliable units. But we can't, because we know if we shut them down, then we're going to increase even the stage of load shedding. So additional capacity is desperately needed in the country in order to have a much more reliable total system to meet the demand for the country. Thanks, Sikonata. I think I just wanted to emphasize that. Thanks.
Philip, thank you very much. That is a very important message you have given. We need additional capacity, currently standing at 4,000 to 6,000 megawatts and growing. The decision to build such capacity lies with the government of the Republic of South Africa. So I do urge my colleagues, if they have any questions about that, to address them to the relevant Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. We have run out of questions here, colleagues. I now would like to ask Jan Oberholzer to again repeat the update as to what is going to, where are we now with regards to load shedding. And we will then close the meeting after he has spoken. Colleagues, we will make this recording available as soon as possible, together with the media statement confirming what we have just communicated. Thank you again for your attendance, and Eskom would like again to apologize to the Republic of South Africa and to the people for this load shedding. Jan, closing remarks, please.
Good. Thank you, Sikonati. Yeah, just to recap, currently we are on stage 2 load shedding, regrettably, obvious, and looking at the system, so we're on a continuous basis evaluating where we are. We are then also, very importantly, looking at the emergency reserves. And as we speak, I'm sitting here just next to Garikwa, and I can actually hear the units running here in the distance. So we are extensively using our open cycle gas turbines, even during the stage 2 load shedding. So we are evaluating our system on an ongoing basis, but where we find ourselves and having a look at what needs to return, and then also take the probability of losing additional units, we believe it is responsible to now inform the country that we unfortunately will have to continue with stage 2 load shedding until 5 o'clock on Saturday morning. Should the situation improve to such an extent, we will communicate, as soon as we can. And if there's any possibility that we are in a position to lift the load shedding, totally, or perhaps to go down to level 1, we will immediately do that, because we really do understand the impact of load shedding to the country, to the people, as well as to the economy of the country. Having said that, I would fail if I don't also thank my colleagues in generation. They're going through a very tough time. We all are. But to say to them that we are really proud of you. Please keep at it. Do your best, because your best will take us out of the situation that we find ourselves. So again, thank you, and we are immensely proud of yourselves. And then, yes, Sikonati, I'd just like to repeat that we really regret having implemented load shedding stage 2, but we will do our utmost to make sure that we lift that as soon as it is possible. And again, thank you for everybody's time today, listening to Philip and myself and Ridwan and Caleb and Sekunati. So thank you for that.
All right, there we go. South Africans will have to contend with rolling blackouts until this Saturday. Eskom COO Jan Oberholzer said this is as a result of a loss of about 4,500 megawatts of generation capacity. Well, he said the power utility has under 2,000 megawatts of high-risk units that they can lose at any time. He also lamented how the impact of the ongoing Russian-Ukrainian conflict will have on Eskom's operations. Well, the power utility implemented stage 2 rolling blackouts from 5 p.m. yesterday afternoon, and it says this is due to multiple generating unit failures over the past 24 hours.